Good evening. This is actually a special meeting of the Housing Committee for February 7th, 2024. I am Kathy Hunter, and I will be chairing tonight's meeting. And tonight we are joined by our committee members, Jonathan Lofters, James Graham, and Mary Dean. And we're also joined by First Selectman Mika Cardoza, Miles Katz, and our special guest, Tim Austin, who will be doing a presentation tonight. So at this point, the next item on the agenda is the public comment. We have Sue. So I just call public comment. Would you here to listen, or do you want to provide public comment at this time?
I don't even think I'm prepared for that. That's
Okay. All right, just asking. Is there anybody here for public comment? Okay. Not seeing anyone here for public comment. We'll usually open it. I'm trying to get onto the proper rules of conducting the meeting, so I'm opening public comment. So now there's nobody here, so I'm going to close public comment. Do I have a motion to close public comment? Okay.
Third.
You're just gonna pass it around tonight?
Okay, so the next item on the agenda is the housing chair report, and I just have some mixed notes here, so I'm just going to, what I wanted to do is reflect on the last meeting we had in terms of some public comments, and after that, we did, Kathy Wick and Amy Morrell also presented to the Board of Selectmen their public comments, and I just wanted to talk, just kind of highlight a couple areas, because some of the suggestions, as we talked about, were good suggestions in terms of just making people aware of zoning changes that were enacted. I know we did previously talk about this. We talked about having a column in the Woodbridge Town News, and I know Elaine was working on a piece for the accessory dwelling units. So she is working on that, and that should be in the next edition. In response to the comment that realtors, that there may be an issue with realtors not knowing about ADUs or duplexes and the change of regulations. I did reach out to Buddy DeGenero. He was, who was on our housing committee, and asked him, are you aware of the zoning regulations that were changed? He said he was absolutely aware, but he agreed that perhaps it could be an issue where some realtors may not be aware. So he was going to work on a suggestion on how best to get that information out to that sector. And in terms of them talking about how we're working in isolation of state policies, I just found it interesting that there is seems to be a movement on the state front for state agencies to get on the same page. We did, I attended a summit on land use and affordable housing that Tim was also at. It was pretty interesting. And they had a panel that had like the Commissioner of DEEP and the Commissioner of DOH. They had a DECD, she was Commissioner or Director. She was in charge of the brownfields, and also the person who was heading up the Office of Responsible Growth. So they are working on this, and I was able to talk to Rebecca Auger, who heads up the Office of Responsible Growth, and you know, we were talking about the conflicting agendas sometimes the state has. Like one of their policies is preserving 21% of Connecticut lands for open space, and so some folks feel that towns like Woodbridge should, you know, protect as much land as possible to achieve the state's goal. But you know, we talked about there should be a recognition that a town like Woodbridge has only 1% affordable housing, that perhaps their emphasis should be on affordable housing and not preserving, more land on behalf of the state goals, and they recognize that. So I think it's just I think it's a good movement that's happening with the state. And I also want to talk about, some of the comments. I went back to actually look at the affordable housing plan because I really haven't revisited it for a while. The idea that we are misleading residents on the 10% affordable housing requirement. If you look at the executive summary of our plan, there is a whole explanation of 8-30G and how the requirement for the 10% is an appeals process. It's a builder's remedy. So it does clearly explain that provision of the requirement for 10%. And maybe it does show up later on in the report that it's 10%, there's a requirement for 10%, and it didn't refer back to this long explanation. But clearly the report does explain all the different regulations that we are working towards with this plan. And also, one of the comments, I think this one was actually made at the Board of Selectmen about us not being properly constituted. We do now have our updated charge, and that could have been confusing because our updated charge was not on the website, but now it's, is that me? Now it's up there, I apologize. Oh, it's Lane. Oh. Hey, Elaine. Oh, hold on. Okay. Oh, sorry, I didn't have any speaker. I just started with my comments to the housing committee, so I'm just going to keep you here.
Okay.
Okay, so we have Elaine Feldman's in the room.
Hi, everybody.
Okay.
So Kathy, you can remind us what the updated charges? Was that recent?
Our charge was we had a charge, you remember in the beginning, when we first came on board, we were the Housing Study Opportunity Committee. I might have gotten those words mixed up. And our charge was to our main charge was to prepare an affordable housing plan by June 2022. And then thereafter, we were reconstituted to effectively help implement the plan and provide recommendations to the Board of Selectmen how we could implement the strategies. So that was in September 2022 when we did the new charge. But the old charge was up there, so they did update with the new charge, and to show that we had authorized objectives and associated tasks that were approved by the Board of Selectmen on September 14th, 2023. Some other, and these were suggestions that they provided to the Board of Selectmen. There was a need, and to me these recommendations, I think, go without saying. I mean, they're good recommendations, but it's something that was going to happen. In terms of a build-out, that there should be a build-out analysis to reflect the new regulations. That is part of the plan of conservation development, and the town just issued a new RFP to update the plan of conservation and development, and all that information is going to be updated, including the build-out analysis and included the demographics, because the demographics changed. I mean, when we did our report, they probably reflected 2019-2020. I think a lot of the demographics changed a bit because of COVID, so they're going to have all the updated demographics there.
Kathy, if I might just
Sure.
comment on it, that as far as the Board of Education, as far as what was outlined or what was presented during public comment at the Board of Selectmen meeting, my office is looking at all those comments. Our housing document is, housing in particular, is very, very important, not only from my perspective, but from the town's perspective going forward. So we will take a look at everything that's in it to to make sure that it's consistent, to make sure that it's accurate, and particularly because it will be, as you said, part of the plan of conservation and development. But as it stands right now, we've looked at it. I'm going to invite this committee to present on the March meeting, specifically to update us and identify exactly where we are. And by that time, any comments that's made, any input that's been given by the public, we will have considered that, looked at it, and reacted accordingly based on what we found. But it is something that's very important. We're going to make sure that it's accurate. We're working with a lot of different people to make that happen. And in the March timeframe, we'll present it and go from there. So I'm hoping you'll be able to come in March.
Oh, yes, definitely, we will, well, I plan to be there, and I hope the committee can make it as well. So March, I don't know what date that is, but
March 13th is the date of the March Board of Selectmen meeting.
my birthday.
You didn't realize that when you said yes, did you?
I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. Okay. All right. And just one other suggestion that they provided, I just wanted to talk about briefly, was the 50 acres of state-owned property on Litchfield Turnpike. And I think I sent you out with those land parcels look like, and they wanted to turn that into a suggestion for state-sponsored legally affordable housing, which is public housing. So, and so when you look at the property, one is kind of in Knowles Pond. The other one there was a floodplain, and there was a couple in the wetlands. And then the one, the big 26-acre parcel was actually a road that was like 50 feet wide and 2 miles. So that's why it was a lot of acres. So they were talking about a road that I guess goes up the West Rock Ridge, which I don't think would be suitable for housing. So those I just wanted to talk about those comments, and the idea that the thought would be to concentrate public housing in that area in order to reach our affordable housing goals. So some other news, the town is posting an RFP for securing a consultant to prepare a small city CDBG application. I don't know if it's posted yet, and Allison says she'd post it by the 9th. And this would be an application for planning capacity to help with implementing the town's affordable housing plan. We're also going to be requesting funding to replenish the homeowner rehab program, because that hasn't been replenished. I think the last time they asked for funding was 2012, but it revolved, so they were able to use funding. But from what I understood, there was a waiting list for this program. So if there is a waiting list, then we should really respond to the need. And I think it would be helpful, particularly with seniors that are maybe struggling and they can't do repairs because they're on a fixed income now. This would help them, and it just I'm not sure exactly how it's structured, but a lot of times these programs are structured as a zero interest loan that's put on the property, and then when it's sold, it's just repaid back to the town to replenish the program. So it's a really, really good program. And also with that, we will need to prepare a fair housing action plan. So, that's a thought that maybe that's something you may want us to look at or to work on when we get a consultant on board to do that.
I will just also comment that the RFP that you're referring to will probably be extended to the 12th instead of the 9th. It's looking like we talked about that today. So.
Okay. I don't think that should be. I checked the DOH website and they didn't even announce the program yet, so that shouldn't be a problem.
Thank you.
And also something really cool, I got the news today. The Department of Housing created a position for a planner that reports directly to the Commissioner of Housing to help with towns like Woodbridge to implement their affordable housing plan. So this is some more capacity on top of the small cities. And so I'm able to announce that Ben Lovejoy just got his contract today. Ben Lovejoy was somebody we were working with at the Scribe. And so they snatched him over to be working with DOH, and he did say that Woodbridge is on the short list. So that is really good news for getting planning capacity, because he certainly knows, what we've been working on.
That's great.
Yeah, so, we already talked about our March, update. And that is all I have, and I did kind of talk a lot again, so I don't know if anybody has any questions? No, clarifications?
So you mentioned the property on which turnpike as.
Maybe you wanna
is
speak.
a wetland? You said it's a wetland, not part of it?
There was like four parcels, and,
Parcels.
yeah, so you can see when you look at the map, did you get a
Yeah,
chance to look
so
at
it's
yeah,
on the
so
map.
the green, there's a green is at the wetlands, and then with the more, with the diagonals is a floodplain. Yeah.
Is it developed?
No, well, you can never get public housing in a floodplain, I'll tell you that. The road you're not gonna be able to develop on. Wetlands, it really depends, there's setbacks, both those parcels were pretty much wetlands. So I'm not saying absolutely no way, but I don't think they would be considered, properties that the state would wanna develop for public housing.
We also do have to keep looking into this as well, those properties that we have, to see if there's any potential for, whether it's development, whatever it might be. They also check into the wetlands aspects of it to see what's developable and what's not, so.
You're talking about the town properties?
Correct.
Yeah. Which is a wonderful segue to Tim Austin, who's gonna do a presentation on the Greenway. Tim Austin's from the Woodbridge Trail Stewards, and of course the former chair of the Conservation Commission, and we thought it would be a good idea to talk to Tim, because these properties are coming up, and we wanna be compatible, we wanna create some synergy, because affordable housing and open space need to work together. And so as these properties come up, we wanna make sure that we are promoting the goals of the Greenway as well as promoting goals of affordable housing. And clearly there's some properties that just aren't suitable for housing, but we wanna just prevent, something where it's being, recommended with the end goal of trying to discourage development, where if we just work together, we can have both. So take it away, Tim.
Thank you, and thank you all for entertaining me tonight to talk about the Woodbridge Greenway, something in which I have great interest and I guess great passion. I'm hoping this is only a little presentation and more questions and answers, and some discussion as needed. And I've structured things a little bit to try to force the questions, but I've read a couple large maps, which we'll get up in a little bit, stretch our legs and take a look at the maps into the Greenway. I think it is somewhat understood by seeing it on the map, where it is and where in town. And then I have some other maps we'll look at that are smaller, a little harder to read and go through. But first I wanted to thank each and every one of you for your work on the Housing Committee. There's, I think it is has a challenging thing. I think there's resource issues. Hopefully Ben is now going to be even more of a resource for you. But it's going to take effort, and it's probably be controversial along the way. So thank you for your efforts in the past and in the future. We appreciate it. Before we start, I thought I would ask all of you. Kathy gave the briefest introduction. Kathy and I didn't spend a lot of time talking about this and the greenways. I just took it and ran because I knew what the greenway was. But anyway, I'd like to ask what would each of you like to get out of this? Are there questions you want answered ahead of time that I can try to incorporate as I go through? And maybe there's not specific questions. Maybe you don't know enough about the greenway, but the greenway is, in short, you'll see some more words about this. It is a series of trails that go through the town's open space and knit it together. So, and that's all I'm going to say. But are there things you'd like to get out of tonight, just so I can try to hit those?
I mean, my end goal is if say for example, a property comes up, Coupal has a property that comes up, and maybe it's a property that's being targeted for the greenway, and maybe the conservation committee might say, no, we have to preserve this whole piece of property for a greenway, say it's, maybe 5 acres or something. And we look at it and say, well, if you kind of do the greenway where it's around this edge, you could still have housing, and in fact the greenway would be very complementary for that housing. To be able to work that out, and how that could be a good, what kind of process that would be able to get to that end. And because, I don't always know whether or not we could have, complementary goals, and I like to be able to figure out if that's some type of criteria we can put into determining when to take a piece of property for the greenway, because there's got to be some criteria of, we have to have a kind of a social justice lens that we can't preclude, housing, for where you can have both, where you can have the greenway and housing, and not have it like at either or. If that makes sense.
It does make sense.
Yes.
I don't know that it was in the sweet spot of the information that I was bringing you tonight.
Yeah.
But I will say that I think having knowledge of the greenway is going to help the discussion.
Right.
I'm not sure we'll get to the exact process, but I believe that's going to be dialogue over time with multiple people, multiple interests, and but the information shared equally will help. But we'll take that question, and I think that'll be at the end
Okay.
question maybe we'll come back to. I'm not sure you get it on the way through. What else?
Same thing. I think it serves us very well to understand the goals, what Greenway is, what its intentions are,
Okay.
who's going to be using it. The more we understand the direction that wants to go in Park and Pond, the better we're going to be able to have constructive conversation when we work together.
You'll be much happier with me than Kathy is coming. I think I'll do this.
I'd echo the sort of similar issue in terms of trying to figure out how best to coordinate and sort of take into account the town's priorities, which really should come from the top down in one sense. But also, I suspect that what happens is that we kind of operate in silos, and discussions are had, decisions are made, and then they're done without any coordination. And so then you have, it's better to have those kinds of discussions, or at least back and forth beforehand, just in terms of sort of minimizing conflict.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I suspect we all have to be cognizant of what the priorities of the town are, and, you know, like I said, that's probably maybe coming from this office.
Well, it should come from town leadership, you know, priorities, sure.
But I do think that, I do think that there is quite a bit of siloing. So we're not, you don't know what we're doing, we don't know what you're doing, and there are other, and that's a problem. It's a problem, it's an impact.
It has an impact. Anything else?
I think I'll have more questions once
Yeah.
I learn more of what.
Then that's fine.
Scope is a question I have in terms of size and scope. In other words, is greenway properties have to be contiguous? How much of it is, how large is it? How, you know, you say the trails knitted together, so does that mean that, you know, you can have a piece of property here and then a quarter mile away you can have another piece of property, or connected with the trail? Is that enough, or do you really need a larger strip, if you will, of contiguous property in order to make that happen? Things of that nature. And along the lines of, you know, the way that I look at it is, what, in terms of what Kathy said, is I don't see that they need to be mutually exclusive. In other words, if you have a greenway, you can't have this, or if you have this, you can't have a greenway. And so I'd be curious to see what it's about, to see if that's actually true.
So you stepped on my line. I was saving it, but
Sorry.
yes, I think I've said that to you, that things don't have to be mutually exclusive. There are considerations according to the line you just asked the question, so it's a good question.
And Elaine, do you have any comments?
I'm just wondering, is the Greenway an extension of the existing Blue Trail, or are they completely separate?
They are overlapping. The Blue Trail, as you think about it, is part of the Greenway. It's not the entire Greenway, but it's a large part of the Greenway.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have a question from Sue. Sue, do you want to add
Well,
something?
I think that just got answered, because I have the blue trail on my street. The green trail goes over my property and across my neighbors, so you can live on the green trail. If it's a trail, or if the greenway is different. But I guess that's the answer, it's all part of the.
That's why Tim's here. He's going to be doing the presentation as to what is the greenway.
All right. And I brought some material to try to answer some of these questions that came up, and others. And I'm going to pass it out very, very shortly, but I'm going to ask you to not do something that I would do if I was sitting where you were, which is to take it and start flipping through and reading it.
No,
What I prefer to do is make this a directed reading. Anybody know what a directed reading is?
Kind of what it sounds like, right?
Yeah, it's a polite way of saying that I'm going to tell you what to read and when to read it. And it just, keep us together and keep the questions, so we can hopefully get through. But we may have taken more time than Kathy.
No, go ahead.
to get
No,
started.
we have a short agenda. We do not have Ben Fink coming to the meeting on the phone.
Stretch my legs out. Pass it around.
I don't know where he is right now.
Elaine, I apologize. This is not going to work well for you on the phone.
It's okay. Kathy can fill me in on what I can see.
Tim, do you have this electronically as well?
I do,
Okay, so we'll send it
but
to.
no capability to send it
Yeah.
right this moment.
No, we'll send
Now,
it to Elaine.
Kathy, because you are not full with committee members, I do have a couple extra copies if you want me to
Great, okay.
pass it to the public.
Did you give them to Miles?
I haven't given it,
Okay,
anyway, I wanted to check
yeah,
if you
yeah.
were comfortable with that.
I think Miles is good, he will probably have this one.
Thank you.
It's public information
Yeah,
as far as
no, right,
I'm
yeah.
concerned, because,
No, yeah.
and I'll draw you to the first page, where it says that these are some notes and quotes, a lot of quotes, and information from the Greenway Planning, the Woodbridge Greenway plan. And so we'll go through and look at the information. But I'm gonna call myself out right away and say that the page 2 is not from the Greenway plan. It's something I found after the Greenway plan was put together. I would have proposed it to be included, but I found it ahead of time. So with that, I was hoping you were going to ask most of the questions. In this case, I'm going to read page 2. So if you want to flip to that and read along or just listen. The challenge of the new conservation is to develop a proper balance among man's various necessities. The need to earn a living, to enjoy the advantages of urban life, and the equally desirable advantages of recreation in some reasonably accessible place. To have sparkling rivers, remote valleys, and scenic beauty to visit if the spirit moves one, to protect forests, rivers, and other natural resources for the future, and to ensure that wild birds, fish, and animals remain as man's companions in sojourn on the earth. And this was, as you see, the New York Times in 1965. I love the turn of phrase, the various necessities, talking about people's needs to have a way to earn income, to enjoy urban life, which to me includes housing, being advantages of commerce, all those things you get when you have neighborhoods, but also to enjoy the outdoors. So this is the spirit I approach this with, and it's the spirit I think you have to have both. So. The next page, page 3, we all turn. The way I've structured this is a series of questions and answers. So what I'm going to suggest we do is have you read three questions at a time. So if you want to read the first 3 questions, and then let's talk about it or answer any questions you might have as we go along. And I think it's the answers right away. And what is the Greenway? So just look up when you're ready. We'll take questions if they have not been clear in these answers. And you'll see a lot of quotes in here, italics and quotes that come right from the Greenway plans as adopted by the Conservation Commission a couple of years ago. Okay, good on the first 3?
Yes.
I can't.
Oh, wait.
She's already started.
Yeah, you didn't listen. So, everybody got the first 3? Questions? All right, let's power on then. Those are the easy ones, maybe perhaps. And the next 3 to finish up the first page. Yeah, I just didn't see a need for me to talk at you.
Can we ask questions on the first?
Oh, that's what I want you to do.
Okay.
And I didn't want to just project it because I
Yeah.
wanted you to have a reference, especially when the pages coming up, to take away as you think about what is the Greenway, what you described here.
Do we still celebrate Woodbridge Greenway Day?
No, that was a one-time event as far as I know.
Oh, okay.
We do have various organizations that sponsor walks as part of town days, and sometimes separately. There's a National Trails Day, or Connecticut Trails Day, excuse me, and walks are sponsored, so we do celebrate in that sense. So questions on the first 6?
Is the Greenway protected property?
Partially. We're gonna see a lot more. Yeah, someone else should read this. We're gonna get to that in detail. Not only on the next page, question.
That was the question I had at the beginning too.
Okay, so you'll see that in detail. Any other questions on those first 6?
Is does the town go, I know there's, funding out there for trails now that's open. Is the town going for any, funding in that respect for the trails?
My understanding is that the Conservation Commission is pursuing one grant at this time. It has a quick deadline, early March.
Yeah.
I don't know the specific name of the grant. It was just expressed to me as a grant.
Okay. Yeah, I did see that.
And that is just perhaps a sidebar. There's an initiative in the Conservation Commission to identify, working with the Amity Historical Society, to identify places with historic interest on or near the trails, and to come up with explanations and mark those trails with signposts and information, maybe a QR code to go get the information to people on their phones. I think the talk was to use that grant to enhance the trails in that way, for some of the design of those markers and so forth.
Do you have any thoughts, maybe this is getting off cue here, but it's just a thought I had in terms of making some trails actually accessible for people, because there's a number of older people that walk in those trails, and I can see they're struggling, and they're kind of bemoaning, yeah, we're not gonna be able to do this anymore, we're gonna have to, walk around the cornfields or something, but, they love, and it'd be nice if we somehow think about making maybe a little part of that accessible for a wheelchair or another person to walk.
The topography of town makes that more challenging than some
Yeah.
other towns. I will say, right outside where we are in Allison Street Park, the main trail has been, is very wide, and it has gravel put on it, and it has some of these, but they're not rocky climbs. And so, I'm sure there's a range of accessibility, I guess. I'm not sure it would be ADA compliant. I don't know what those guidelines are, but that's one. Later on, when we come to Knoll's Pond, we can raise that again. If you will. Okay, anything else on the first page, 1 through 6? Okay, for those who didn't skip ahead. You see, we have a wide range of people whose land the Greenway crosses.
Are we just reading the first three?
Excuse me?
Are we just reading the first three or the whole thing?
Well, I thought that was how to chunk it, but at this point, if you want to do the page, that's perfectly fine too. Make it quicker overall, because number 10 is tied to number 9 and answers the question that came up here. So I want this, the way we do this, to serve you, but this is a synopsis of the history. Okay.
What does permanently protected mean?
Why don't we answer that? If you'd like to flip back to page 14, there, this is an appendix, it says a couple pages earlier, the page before. so I didn't propose to have you read all this today, but there are different levels of protections of the land of the Greenway. And we've classified them thusly, as you see. They are arranged from most protected to least protected in that appendix. There are some properties that most people would feel comfortable saying they are permanently protected. They have Connecticut law behind them saying you cannot not have this as open space. And we have some of those properties in town. Those are that way in the first category, second category that I was thinking of, grants and aid. Some other property is protected because in the deed it says so. Some people have given property to the town and said this has to remain as open space. Other properties, as you go further down the list, have less and less protection, and in reality, at the end, no protection. They're protected. A PA 490 property is not going to be developed until the person decides to sell their property and to a developer, and then it can be developed.
So a deeded property is permanent.
If the deed
States that.
says so, and we have some of those. So that's a reference I give as a way to think about properties and their levels of protection. Okay. Other questions on the first?
I'm just curious, is the Greenway includes land owned by private landowners. I imagine that would present issues for landowners, or some landowners that don't realize that they have a conservation easement on their property until they somehow find out, or do you ever run into situations where landowners aren't particularly happy that their property has a greenway running through their property, either, I don't know, swing set or something, I don't know.
If a part of the greenway or part of any trail runs through a person's property, and they don't know about it, and it's not in the deed, and there's not been permission granted, then they probably have a right to be somewhat upset about that, and it probably shouldn't be that way. We run into all different variations of that. We have a property I have in mind that we've had greenway there. In fact, it was the former Trails Master's house where the greenway ran up his driveway and into the very beautiful woods back and up in the Elderly Preserve. And when I hiked that trail 25 years ago, people said, yeah, this is the Trail Master's house and he lets us go, there's an easement, blah, blah, blah. But when I researched it, there's no easement. So that's a problem. So there are opposite problems. There are I do know some trail sections where there are the greenway that goes through and a trail, and the person knows about it, but it's not protected. And that is a challenge, because the next person could say, you don't want your people walking up our driveway. That's a problem.
If I'm reading page 6 correctly, I see 5
Well,
properties.
can we wait on page 6?
Oh, you can. Then if that's the case, then I can. No, okay, I can wait.
Okay.
But if you go past page 6, I'm gonna hold you to it.
Yeah, okay. Well, I'll try to distract you, because the next page is a map of the greenway. It's a small map, it's harder to see. I have a bigger one here. So I'm gonna get up and just look at the map and get a big picture of what the greenway is.
Big glass.
Self-oriented there. How many of you are walkers, hikers?
Yeah, hang on.
The Greenway, as it was first defined, starts, and I guess I should orient you to the map. So Hamden, New Haven, Derby, and Sonia. Okay, Bethany's here. The Greenway Trail is the blue trail. Starts up at the top of West Rock. And just looking, it does form somewhat of a circle. The circle's not closed. And we're going to come back to Canolds Pond along the way when we talk about envisioned expansions of the Greenway. But it comes down and crosses the Darling House and goes up along this ridge. This is, to me, the nicest walk in town. Crosses Dillon Road. This becomes water company property here, so permit required.
And that's all walkable.
Oh, yeah, no, this is all, yeah. I mean, you know, there are, the Greenway through Alice Newton Street Park is a fairly easy walk. You know, here, there's, you know, some hills, and it's Woodbridge, and you go up and down hills. There's nothing, this may be the most strenuous piece, because this goes up to the top of the rock. Well, the rock's up here, but it goes up to the top of the ridge, so you're going up for a little while. No, the Darling House is down, further down Litchfield Turnpike. And Stop and Shop, there's Stop and Shop. So, Route 69, Route 63. Okay. And this is, for orientation, this is the Wells Fargo Bank. Right there. Yeah. So,
Yeah, but that is the trail.
This goes right behind Stop and Shop here? This is the
Um,
trail that goes up there?
The trail, yeah, the trail
No.
that you start at Wells
No.
Fargo.
No, the Stop and Shop's gotta be, you know,
It's not in
it's
Woodbridge.
it's not in Woodbridge, it's right before the line. The red is the town line. Okay, so the Stop and Shop, I believe, is in here someplace. And this goes up, when you're up here, you're sort of behind it. Well, I should say up here. But quickly, so we cross town, and we keep going. And there's Eldersley up here. The driveway I talked about from Hardwood property is here. All right. And we continue down. This is all, there's the Naugatuck Trail here, is an old Indian trail. There's another Indian trail here. And then we come through Alice Newton Street Park, through right close to where we are. The trail officially goes behind, on the other side of the ball fields there. Crosses Center and comes through Fitzgerald property. And goes through a very narrow easement through a, who's the big developer? Toll Brothers. That's definitely the new one. They at one time built houses here, and so there's a very narrow easement there.
And do people actually walk through that narrow easement?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. The others tend to use it as for the leaves, and that's a challenge. But and then we have a stretch along Pease Road. This is land trust property. There's a stretch along Pease Road that we're in the process of trying to come up come to an agreement with Eversource, so that we can take this trail and instead of here, over to here, and take the land trust trail and put it here, smaller, road walk. One of our goals is to just increase safety in general, along with increasing accessibility. Talked on it. So then we go through Order 23 property. There's a spur that goes up here. Actually, there's some other trails coming up here, but then this is the JCC. And one of, this will come up later, one of the hopes eventually is to be able to connect back up and get to the playgrounds, more accessibility for people, and then give people a way to access, in some of these communities, a way to access town center. But then we come down through a part of town that's a little more isolated. Mountain bikers like this part of town, trails for them, and we come down Fountain Street, or it's on the road is the road I live on. And there are other trails, of course, scattered around. Here, Bethany Farms, partially here, there. And of course the state.
Now, is there any part of these trails that are not walkable or just kind of aspirational, or is it all, can you literally walk around in a circle?
Well, I'm glad you brought me back to that circle. Anything that's shown as a trail is walkable. If we're doing our job, getting out and keeping it maintained, which is a challenge for everyone. And the Land Trust takes care of many of the trails in town. They do a nice job with that. And the Park Association takes care of Allison Street Park, and there's trails behind the high school that runs. And then the town stewards group, which trail stewards, volunteers who take care of trails that are on strictly town property. There's an overlap with the Land Trust because the town owns many of the parcels that the Greenway goes through, that the Land Trust has a conservation easement on town property. So they take care of some of those lands. When I was talking here, this trail, you mentioned the word aspiration. The second part of the material I have provided with you. This Greenway, you all read the questions and answers. About 12 miles. We've been around 20 plus years, 25, and that's what's there now. The aspirational piece, I still call it aspirational, but there is a expansion that the Conservation Commission looked at and agreed of a number, and we'll look at maps of what those were. And I call them aspirational because they're not on the map yet. Those have to be blazed. Blazing is the last. Those have to be designed. Those have to be routed. Those have to be, looked at carefully. Permissions have to be granted if you get not in some cases.
All right, so this is what is now.
This is what is.
Okay.
As is, what is. Okay. Part of the, I'll just mention this because maybe because I'm very interested in this. You asked the question. One of the things we want to do is close the circle. So we would like to come down here, and this is Wells Fargo Bank. There's a nice edge piece of property there that the trail is falling apart. But we walk down Bradley Road, it's a road, and I can't escape that. And then find a way to get around this pond. This is difficult because it's a business that is not suitable for sending people walking by. Lots of liability for business materials. This land is not walkable. It's slope. It's ledge. So So the thought is to bring this somehow around, you know, and maybe over time work gets done by Litchfield Turnpike. But I walked it and we can get in and out of some land here. And there's going to be some street walking.
It's right to the street.
I'm sorry?
It's pretty tight to the street.
Yeah, it is tight to the street. But once you get up into some of the state property, you can get into this little piece that looks small here, but you can get in there. And the thought was, of course, we want to get back up to the Darling House here. And we have one problem piece of property, but the thought in mind and accessible trails, coming back to that would be a wonderful thing for the dense neighborhoods we have down here, and the people in the dense neighborhoods, to give them an ability to go and walk around here, you can see the state property, and you can only go this far. You can circumnavigate it right now, but maybe some person retires and that business gets sold, and there's a way to do that. But this people used to rent rowboats or some type of boats and recreate down here. And if you sneak a look at it, it's a wasted resource, I think, from town. Soapboxing now, so I'll get off it.
That seems Spielvogels.
Excuse me?
That seems Spielvogels property.
That name doesn't ring a bell with me. The name may come to me. It's actually owned by many, many people.
Oh, it's settled, there's a set of acres right there. So this is Eric, where Eric lived.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the contrast, so the open space is green. I see that the green was based on growth through most of the open space.
Yeah. You can flip to this other map. This is the same Greenway Trail. This just presents town ownership of the land. What land is the town?
Oh,
Just a,
that's the darker green.
it's the darker green. So it's an interesting view.
That is,
Oh.
now is that, do we have a copy of this?
I didn't put this in the folder.
Is that in the?
I don't think you've seen this one either, but just on the way out, I know.
Yes, sure.
It's like, but
This would be important for us.
but we had this map drawn up. This the same greenway and everything. This is a simple map that just shows in darker green the town-owned open space
That is good.
versus open space owned by those other organizations, which are all listed at the bottom. So I have small copies of this too, I can send you.
Oh, my God, I picture everything.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's what we need to understand when these, properties come up.
Well, yeah, what Crew Top is looking at, I mean, that,
What are the yellow lines and the light orange lines?
Sure enough.
I'm sorry, can you hear me? Somebody else.
If you read more and have questions,
I will.
please do. Anything I can, any way I can help. Yellow lines?
Yellow lines.
Those are trails. Yeah, we didn't list all the different trail colors, but those are trails within this property. This is Elder Cliff.
Oh, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, now some park has a yellow trail.
Okay.
No, I think this is interesting, because this brings you from the, you know, the country club area right down to Amity. And we've actually walked this, where you could like actually walk from, you know,
Still, it's an old road.
You know what,
In fact, it's not that old.
and that's how you do the, to me, if you're looking for the connectivity of bringing business down to the business district, you know, this is where that can happen. People could actually walk right down if that was developed.
I'm sorry we could left. Before you ask that question,
Oh,
because there's,
we'll take.
well, yeah.
Can you see this okay?
Yeah, Tim, I just wanted to get the map that you're talking about.
Oh, sure. The Wells Fargo parcel is a problem.
Yeah.
The way it ends, it's not safe. something has to be done to address that. It comes out right across from Bradley Road.
Yeah,
I think there's a crosswalk there.
yeah,
and-
it's perfect.
and you need a little sidewalk to go down, well, easier than crossing the road, but yes, that, very much so. I'm also gonna call your attention to a very small green line here. That's not a trail. That is a piece of land trust property, small one. And I only say it is because it's another way to bring, people, down and through, people coming from different neighborhoods, to the same thing. The connection here, and that's, we've envisioned that this could connect up, and you have, this is a little rocky and steep. This might be a gentle walk, just by the way.
I'm curious to know why this is light instead of dark green.
That is a wonderful question, and it may have to do with when the data was generated. In 2018, I had to rely on Scrub. Yeah, but that was still, that was still a country club, so why did that come out? I didn't even notice that.
The town owned it since
Yeah, the
2016.
town owned it.
They just had old data.
Yeah, they just had old data.
Old data.
I know, I mean,
Yeah.
they did to our
Just
house.
unacceptable.
You know?
Sorry.
Yeah, but we owned it in 2018.
Yeah, we did, we owned it in 2016.
Yeah. Yeah, but good question.
It's all data.
Good question. Racework track with orange. Another big trail there.
right. It's water, or is it?
That's right.
No,
Oh, that's-
that's town owns that.
Oh, okay.
Really?
Yeah, that's very, yeah, everybody here thinks, I'm sure, thinks of the racetrack track as orange. It's gonna be a big parking
I mean,
area.
that's a good piece, but is that on
That-
public
that's
water supply?
town.
No,
That's Woodbridge Town owned
That's
That's
project.
Woodbridge Town owned.
How did
You
that
can,
happen?
because we got money
Because we
funded
bought it?
by the
Yeah,
taxpayers.
I think that
and
was
we
part
bought
of
it.
the phase
It
3
wa-
of the water company.
It was
right?
water company
Yeah, the phase 3,
property,
remember?
but, so excuse me for not realizing what your question was right away, but, yeah, that is now town.
Okay.
There's an entrance in the back here, not very convenient. And I have been asking all the good questions. I'd like to be able to put a parking area here so our residents could more easily access these trails.
Oh, I know this place, but you're right, it's not good.
So these are all trails in here, so these are all protected trails, or?
Well, the trails aren't protected, property is protected.
Okay.
So this property is protected because of the monies that were
Okay,
used to
to
acquire it.
okay.
So if you go on this side, you don't have to have a permit from the water company?
You don't have to have a permit any place on the
Any
racetrack,
place on the
because
racetrack.
they sold it to us. We, the town, are the owners. You-
I have a permit, so I don't know.
Yeah, I had one, and mine's expired, but I'm sure we'll go back.
So is this entire parcel protected, or just where the?
No, the entire Gracebrook parcel is protected.
Okay.
Me, all of a sudden it comes back to me, why this is not dark green? Is this true? I'm thinking maybe we use someone may have
spaces.
asked the question. The definition of open space is a very contentious one. Some people think it implies protected open space. And I'm wondering, when I talk to Scroggie and say, we use open space, I got just the protected ones, so I'd have to look at this map a little more carefully.
Well, we know.
Because this is not, that would not be protected. So I have to, yeah. And then capital O. Usually if you see capital, it means it's protected, but we should revise this map to be more clear.
I mean, here's like, for example, here's a trail that's along the edge, but would this be able to be, I don't even know what this property is, but
It's, that's.
That's a river, that's a stream. or
right,
river.
right. But with that, or is that on, I mean, and that's part of,
That's the piece.
that's the piece.
East part.
Oh,
So that's under the direction of the recreation department.
gotcha.
You know, and that,
You got an easement going back into it from the, yeah, we do.
that's part of the property.
Okay.
Once in a while, they have events there, you can drive through.
Okay, all right.
All right, so we'll go back and we'll flip through the rest of the pages. I'm under duress to go to page 6.
Kathy,
Yes,
will you be able to have copies of what you're all looking at?
yes, yes. Tim's gonna provide, he's gonna, send that. The email's not very good here to actually send that right now, but he's gonna send it to us.
Okay, I'm gonna get off because it's very hard for me to hear and participate, so.
Okay, well, we're done with the, we're done with the presentation of the map, so if you wanna stay, if you need to go, that's fine.
Oh, no, I don't need to, it's just that it was difficult to hear. Okay, no, I'll stay on,
Okay,
I'll stay on, okay.
All right, on page 6, other than the question, I'm not going to dwell on this page, but it just will give you each of the properties that blue greenway trail passes through. And then it will tell you what type of ownership there is, what kind of protection there is, flip to the back to take the reference. And then some notes that may or may not be relevant to you, but those were notes we had in the plan as we looked at those properties. The most often recurring type of item in that note section is, for many years in the open space plans, properties were referred to just by the owner or a former owner, and they got to be known as the Rice property. You know, many of us who are newer to town don't know who the Rices were, nor where that property is. So we got away from it, but that references still exist, so those are in the notes, just by the way. Okay. So, you know, as you come up with properties and start discussing them, I thought this might be a reference you can look at to say, does the greenway get through there? You look on the other page of the map, it's hard to tell, but these are all the properties.
So quick question, page 6, town managed is the same as town owned?
No.
No.
Yes, actually, yes, there should, and that's an error in editing. I would think that when, I think we, in constructing the document, we went towards town managed, and that's what should be there. If you see a town owned, then it's probably a mistake.
Okay.
The town managed, you know, I think if we go to the definition, but quickly, it just means the town owns it. But, and the town manages it, but it's not protected.
Thank you. Definition section.
I have a question. Can I ask a question back here?
sure.
Thank you. On 57 Park Lane, it's the solar farm,
Yes.
and it says protected none. So that means the trail goes through, but it's not, what does that mean? And what does it mean, land use agreement, you need the town? Can you explain that?
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm gonna answer it this way so the mic picks me up, so excuse me.
Okay.
This was one of those cases where the, unbeknownst to the people who took care of the trails and walked them, this trail went through a piece of private property. There was a thought that it was on land trust property, but when the property owner sold the land, and the company came in who was wanting to put in a solar farm, and they did the survey. The trail was in one part, just over by some feet, but in another part, ran smack through the middle of their private property. And so that trail was cut in 2 pieces. The solar company was willing, because they were putting in a very static pieces of equipment, and it's surrounded by fences. They were willing to entertain having the trail reconnected outside their fence lines, but they wanted to have an agreement that would say, it's a land use agreement, that there are certain conditions under which we're using the land, and if they decide to sell it, all bets are off until you see who's the next owner.
So it's minus the easement. They don't
There-
want to have an easement in case they sell it.
Yeah, I think in their case, and maybe the utilities seem to be this way. Eversource are starting a negotiation now to be able, for the trails that are on their property. They've been there forever, but they've formalized to having these agreements just so they're protected. They feel they're more protected.
That explains why it was messed up when they put that solar farm in.
Yeah, they got messed up. And we just actually, because they finished the fencing, over the winter, early winter, we reconnected the trail in the back that was cut.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So we've spent a lot of time already.
No, this has been very, very helpful. Appreciate this.
This whole next section is the overview of the expansion areas.
Oh, okay.
So you tell me, Patty, how you want to spend time. I think you know the approach here. The first page, page 7, you can see most of the expanded expansion areas are clustered down in that bottom right corner, different colors. Part of it is the complete, and you get a little bit of the legend on the right, on the left tells you, what some of the goals are, or where these trails are. The reason we're expanding is the quote at the top, and that's worth reading, because we're really trying to support the town in building a connected community, allowing more people to get access closer to where they live to trails. We're not, the parts of town where it's more difficult, in the top left and top right, it's more difficult, but there's water company property up there that gives those people access. In the following pages, their maps are larger, and it goes through area by area, so you can get more of a visual about where some of these aspirational trails are going. But as I said earlier, this is not purely aspirational. It has been something that we went to the state of Connecticut, and they have seen that we've adopted this. The Conservation Commission adopted it, and it was recognized by the state of Connecticut in the last 6 months. So those visuals, I feel like, Kathy, again, you tell me how much time you want to spend looking at maps. And we can talk, you can see the visuals, but then on page 11, I do, again, incorporate the properties that these would pass through if they came to be the way they're outlined.
Oh, that's helpful. Okay.
Yeah. And so that is very much like the existing trail in terms of the constituent properties. Now, one of the questions that was raised, Mika raised, and he's not going to be here for this. As these trails get put in, there's probably room to locate them.
Right.
Okay. And I especially think of the theater lots. The name of the road is escaping me. The town just bought one of them from the state.
Right.
That's a big.
What was the name of that?
The road.
see your lot.
Yeah.
Forest? No.
Yeah,
Is it
yeah, Forest Road.
Okay, Forest.
Yeah, off there. You know, there's room back there, so,
Yeah.
you know, there's no exact lot that the trail's gonna pass through, we just know that has to go through that area. That has to be designed out.
Yeah, yeah.
But Mika's question is an important one, maybe when I think of it again, maybe now's the time to address it. The open space is more beneficial in larger pieces. It's better for the wildlife to have big pieces rather than all these little pieces. And that's what I pretty quickly going to cross my knowledge here, and I hear this term clustered housing, and I think what it means, and really check me on it, is, you know, rather than taking a big piece of property and developing it by 50 similar sized properties and it's divided into 50 pieces, put them all
Yeah.
over on this side
Go
and
vertical.
have a
Yeah.
larger piece over here.
Yeah.
I mean, that's seems to be the way most people who focus on open space and environmental issues think is a better way to go.
Yeah.
You know, there's not, in my mind, a lot of large open parcels left that are to be developed. I mean, you may find some more than I found looking, but you know, we're in a lot of these expansion plans. We're trying to fit through some spaces that are there and walk on some roads when necessary. You know, wildlife can travel through some small corridors that they have to. It's not the best, but it happens. But we're putting together both for purposes of wildlife and having those corridors, so connected corridors really helps, and also for people. But people can walk on roads for short distances and still have the continuity of the Greenway Trail. The Greenway, sort of by definition, is the connected green spaces. No perfect answer in that, but they can coexist, and we will, and we do in places that we were told by this development that, you know, that was not ideal, but, you know, people recognized that was, you know, what could be done at the time to provide access. So.
I mean, what kind of clarified in my brain was the fact we have Greenway and then they have Greenway.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
good for me to know the difference. So
No.
certainly, you know, Greenway will protect the expansion.
And we didn't talk about the expansion areas, maybe it's worth at least mentioning them. Completing the circle is one. We talked about it as sort of map. The former country club property, the Legend Fields, the Fitzgerald property, I sort of pointed that, part of that out as well. But the country club property is going to have multiple uses. It'll have some use, it's there, it's a very large, wonderful piece of property. We wanted to get it connected in to make it accessible, pedestrian accessible to people. And so we designed connections both back into the center of town and connections over to the racetrack track, be it a road walk at this point. That northwest corner walk could be a nice walk. There are a number of land trust owner properties there, town owner properties, town easements. There's some private, if you look at the listing. But it abuts a lot of property in other towns, water company properties and other properties. And you can get to, eventually, you can get to the state park, Berlin Reserve, and you can get to the hope is to develop up there a little bit, because there's not much there now in terms of renewing the trail. Other than that, I would take we can look back at the questions that came up at the beginning. I guess we talked about, I think some of the questions were answered at all.
I'm just, we have to talk about what you think the biggest challenges are for, maybe the existing greenway, or what you think the challenges are. Or maybe the existing greenway is okay, and it's just a question of expansion. But is there any issues that we have with the existing greenway? Or things you'd like to see, is there any problems or challenges you have at this point with what's existing?
Yes, in terms of ownership and protection, there are some problems. Of challenges. I mean, there are problems because the one trail location you talked about that goes up the driveway, that property is for sale. That's a problem, a big potential problem, because it affects the whole greenway in a way that's not recoverable, because it's dense housing, not dense housing, but it's housing contiguous on both sides, and it's hard to see how we would reconnect. So there's that type of problem there. So those are, that's why we identified who owns every piece, so we can start to work on acquiring the vision, the expansion. More of those are on properties where we need to approach the owners and come to some agreement, and we've started that. The Bethany Farms that's mentioned in here is largely is good. I mean, that trail, the trail needs work, but there's no challenges there now that I think that one's done. We're working on, continue to work on trying to work with some property owners. You mentioned Eversource, trying to get that agreement shorted out. So those are things I think those are just ongoing.
Alright, well, I think this, this is a great resource for us to have these properties, some of these have some things to reference to. Probably will still try to bounce some things off to you guys.
Absolutely. And then you I can provide a phone number or anything, you know, you can.
Yeah.
Always willing to talk about this.
I have properties come up, I did try to swing it by Tim to make sure that, we are working together. But I'd like to continue doing that, because again, we're trying to promote, a situation where we're working in sync. We should be working in sync, because I think we all support, the local greenway is a wonderful asset.
I think it is a wonderful asset for the town. We've had a booth in the past, which like you did.
Right.
And
that's what really inspired you to get here, because he was really great. He's a real ambassador for the town and for the Greenway. He got people really stoked about the Greenway.
It wasn't motivating anyway. There was just people coming by and their eyes looking at that map, and their eyes opening, and so I didn't realize, I walked over here, but I didn't realize that it did this and I've been here for 20 years. And that was one type of person. The other type of person was, we moved here a couple months ago, and this is great. And wanting to know more. So people like to get out, and it's nice to get out relatively close by where we live. And that's why our trust is, can we make access points to these trails that come from neighborhoods and give more people. Plus provide, and I was talking to the executive director of the JCC recently, and he talk about the fact of people taking public transportation when they drop off at the JCC, and they're looking to get from there to other places in town where they work. And having walkable paths is addresses something you brought up in the beginning. You can bring that capability, equitable access, I guess we would say.
Yeah.
Correctly, but that is, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to really connect more of, the lower, class, or the it would be, I think it's important to provide more access, to folks in that area. I guess the last question is, have you ever done a complete walk around?
Not at one time,
Oh, okay.
but one person who stopped by the table wanted to do that, wanted to know how long
Okay.
they were interested in.
Okay, all right.
That's it.
This is very interesting, thank you so much. This really is helpful.
Please do ask.
Yes.
You may email me and ask questions. I may hang for a few minutes.
Cool. Okay, well, the next item on our agenda is furthering community conversations. I know that Ben Fink was not able to join us tonight. He has been reaching out. We should say that Ben Fink and I did meet with Tim to just kind of talk about, in terms of the conservation community, who we should be reaching out to, and so Tim gave some suggestions to Ben Fink, and I guess he is, did follow up with some folks, and he's talking to them. I don't know who and what, where, why, but I guess we'll have a report next time. Now that Miles is here with us, I don't know if we've ever had any success with the couple clubs at the high school that might have taken up housing as an issue, or the debate club, and I know I'm not trying to put you on the spot because I know you're really, really busy. I remember that with my son. But is there anything to report on that end?
We had discussed it at one club where we were deciding between what projects we wanted to work on regarding the town, and it came down to either this committee or some stuff with Narcan and bringing Narcan to schools. We had some debates about it, and then we ended up going with the Narcan.
That's important. Yeah. Okay, well maybe we could push it for the next new incoming class.
Yeah, I'm planning to put it on their agenda as topics that they should pick up for next year.
Cool.
Try to work on.
Cool. Okay. And I know Elaine, you had a conversation you did follow up with some of the Human Services Commission, who I guess is no longer there, right? Is Elaine, am I talking to Elaine? She's still on. They have a new chair. Yeah. Elaine, are you there? Okay, well, Elaine did talk to somebody who is on the committee that she knew. I don't remember her name, Susan. Anyway, who suggested that we reach out to Kathy Austin? So we will do that. And that's in terms of, having these type of conversations, to continue our conversation around housing and the needs of the community. And so that's all I have to report. Has anybody else had any progress with community conversations? No?
Yeah. Any names?
Well, I think Kathy lost the rings about somebody in this audience. Okay, I forgot, I don't know, how did I skip that? The approval of the January 3rd minutes. Did people have a chance to look at that? Have a motion to approve?
A second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Is there any discussion on those minutes? So, at this point, we could take a motion to, unless there's anything else. Oh, yeah, I meant to put,
Yes.
I meant to put that in my comments, but, we attended, Elaine, and Mary and I attended a webinar on the intersection of land use and affordable housing. And that was this morning, and it was interesting, it was not what I expected. But did you have a chance to tune into that?
No, I made a little oopsie.
Yeah, well, you know what, it wasn't worth, not that the information wasn't good, but you probably know everything that was on that session, because what she did, Nicole Savannah from the Naugatuck Valley Council of Governments, she's very, very smart, very good, she's young, she's like, I don't think she's even 30 yet, but she's very smart. She went through the roles of planning and zoning, and how there are two different functions, and how there are two different authorities, and how they're doing two different functions, which I found really interesting, and I kind of wish like our planning and zoning actually listened to this, because, you know, we're very heavily focused on the zoning part and not so much on the planning part. But I thought she did a really good job on explaining how to get involved, how she was trying to encourage people's participation on these commissions in order to help with housing. So I kind of raised the question, you know, I didn't identify the town. It's like, well, people probably could figure out who I am. You know, I'm like, yeah, I chair the housing committee, and I am on planning and zoning, and we're in a town where we have 1% affordable housing stock, and what we really need is planning capacity. Because I was trying to see whether or not she was going to drum up some new ideas as to how that could happen. And she basically said, oh, you should reach out to the SCROG, they could provide assistance, and to reach out to the Department of Housing, who I was like badgering for like the past 6 months, Mike Santoro, who gave away our funding I thought I had. So I was like, oh, okay, thanks, I guess I'm doing the right things, and there's nothing else we really could be doing. But I'm feeling positive that we're gonna get some planning capacity, and I'm really feeling positive that Ben Lovejoy is now with Department of Housing and is going to help us out from the state end. So I think between DOH and the SCROG, and then getting some funding in for more planning, we should be in pretty good shape to start doing, really start implementing our plan. So.
It was an interesting presentation for a variety of reasons, and they're going to provide us with a link, so if you want to watch it at another time, it should be what it's supposed to do. It really was a short course, and a lot of stuff that we already know went by very fast. And one of the things is, as Kathy said, that was so frustrating was that she kept talking about planning assistance and planning support and your staff and your planning.
Yeah, she kept on
You know,
saying.
and the whole time I'm going, oh my
God.
And then Kathy asked her question, and the presenter went over all the stuff that Kathy's already done. And I thought, well, at least we've already done everything that we were supposed to. Thanks, Kathy. And that sense, it was gratifying.
Yeah, I know, it's just like,
Hasn't
okay,
come to anything.
did that, done that. But I think I was, you know, I was gonna start saying, yeah, well, that's not, hasn't really helped too far. You know, I think the idea is, I am pressing the issue. The couple of people from the Partnership for Strong Communities liked my question, because I wrote it in the comments, and so at least they're on board. And so I think the more we can bring out our issue of, you know, it's not like we're not trying to do this, it's because, you know, a big part of it is that we're lacking the planning capacity in town to really implement these projects. You know, we're a volunteer board, we're not gonna run out there and start making, you know, zoning text amendments, you know, anytime. So we need somebody that has this expertise in doing that, so. But we will send it out once we get the recording of it, because she did a really good job. So with that, can I have a motion to adjourn?
Adjourn.